"Stop this charity show right now." Marcus Reed's shout shattered the elegance of the Blackwood Foundation hall. The grand hall instantly froze. Wealthy donors, city officials, and reporters with raised cameras watched in stunned silence as the Blackwood family's chief bodyguard strode directly down the center aisle toward Maya Williams. In a room full of diamonds and tuxedos, Maya stood alone, holding her old purse tightly. Before anyone could process what was happening, Marcus stopped right in front of her and dropped to one knee. Shocked gasps echoed through the audience. Preston Blackwood stared from behind the podium as if Marcus had lost his mind, while his billionaire father, Donovan Blackwood, slowly rose from the front row. Marcus bowed his head before Maya, then pointed straight at Preston on the stage. "This woman saved your family," he said, his voice carrying across the room. "And your son tried to send her to prison." The words hit the hall like a judge's gavel. Preston's mouth opened, then closed. For the first time that evening, the polished young heir had no prepared smile, no clever answer, no expensive silence wrapped around him. "What the hell are you doing, Marcus?" Preston snapped. Marcus stayed on one knee, one hand pressed against the floor, his other hand still pointing at Preston. "I'm doing what I should have done the moment I saw her wrist," Marcus said. Maya's fingers tightened around her purse. Her left sleeve had slipped just enough for the small birthmark near her wrist to show, shaped almost like a bird in flight. She noticed Marcus looking at it again, but this time there was no confusion in his eyes, only certainty and grief. Preston forced a laugh and looked out at the audience. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize. Our security chief seems to be having some kind of emotional episode." Then, he looked at two guards near the side wall. "Remove him." Neither man moved. The room noticed. Preston's smile thinned. "I said, remove him." Marcus finally stood. He turned toward the guards and spoke calmly. "Any man who touches me before this evidence is shown will be named in the report going to the district attorney." That stopped the room colder than his shout had. A woman near the front whispered, "District attorney?" A reporter lifted her camera higher. Donovan Blackwood stepped toward the stage. He was 71, tall, silver-haired, and used to being the final voice in every room he entered. His tuxedo was perfect. His expression was not. "Marcus," he said, low and controlled, "explain yourself." Marcus reached inside his jacket and pulled out a thick file folder. He held it up so the front row could see the Blackwood Medical Center seal stamped across the top. "I will," Marcus said. "But not behind closed doors. Not in a private office. Not with lawyers cutting out the truth before it reaches daylight." Preston stepped away from the podium. "This is absurd. That woman is under investigation." Maya lifted her chin, but she said nothing. Preston pointed at her. "She tried to extort my family. She stole confidential documents from our medical center. And now she shows up here to stage a scene." A few people shifted in their chairs. That was how power worked, Maya thought. It only needed to speak first, and doubt would do the rest. Marcus turned his head slowly toward Preston. "No," he said. "You created a false extortion charge because she refused to sign your silence agreement." Preston's face changed by half an inch. Most people would not have seen it. Maya did. Men like Preston did not panic loudly. They tightened. They measured the room. They searched for who could still be bought. Donovan looked at his son. "Preston?" Preston spread his hands, performing innocence for everyone watching. "Dad, look at her, just a poor black woman picking up crumbs in this world. Does she really think anyone in this room will believe her truth over the Blackwood name? She manipulated Marcus, and now she's looking for a payday." Maya's jaw tightened. There it was again. People like her. Not her name. Not her record. Not her work. Not the truth. Just that soft, poisonous phrase men like Preston used when they wanted everyone to understand race and class without having the courage to say either out loud. Marcus heard it too. He walked back to the stage, placed the file on the podium, and pulled out a small flash drive. "Mr. Blackwood," he said to Donovan, "your son has lied to you. He lied to the press. He lied to the police. And 17 years ago, this family benefited from another lie that erased Maya Williams from the record." Donovan's face went pale beneath the stage lights. The hall began to murmur. Preston moved fast now, stepping toward Marcus. "Turn that microphone off." The sound technician looked toward Donovan, not Preston. That small hesitation told the whole room that the balance had shifted. Preston pointed at the technician. "I said cut it." Donovan's voice cut through the room. "Leave it on." Preston turned to him. "Dad, you don't understand what he's doing." Donovan did not blink. "Then I suggest you let him explain before I begin to wonder why you're so afraid of a screen." Marcus inserted the flash drive into the laptop connected to the hall's projection system. A Blackwood Foundation logo disappeared from the large screen behind the podium. A folder opened. Several files appeared. Named by date. Marcus clicked the first one. Before the video played, he looked back at Maya. For a moment, she saw the man beneath the uniform. Not the bodyguard. Not the Blackwood employee. A man who had carried an unpaid debt for 17 years and had finally decided that obedience was not the same thing as honor. "Maya," he said quietly, though the microphone still carried his voice. "I should have found you sooner." Maya swallowed. She wanted to tell him not to apologize here, not in front of people who had come to watch rich men praise themselves, but her throat would not open. Preston seized on her silence. "Look at her Mercedes," he said, turning back to the audience. Not one denial. Not one. Maya looked at him then. "I learned a long time ago," she said, her voice steady enough to surprise even herself, "that people like you don't hear truth from women like me unless a camera says it first." The reporters caught every word. Marcus clicked play. The screen went black for 2 seconds. Then a security video appeared. The timestamp showed 3 weeks earlier. Blackwood Medical Center. Lunch hour. Maya saw herself on the screen before she was ready for it. She stood by a service counter, holding a tray, checking a delivery receipt. Preston entered from the right with 2 assistants, a young attorney, and Marcus behind him. The hall watched as Preston stopped in front of her. The audio crackled, then cleared. "Move," Preston said on the video. Maya's recorded voice answered, "I'm sorry, sir. I'm just confirming the delivery." Preston stepped closer. "Then confirm it somewhere else." In the present, the real Preston stood stiff beside the podium. On the screen, one of his assistants brushed against Maya. The tray tilted. Maya caught it with both hands. Then Preston looked her up and down. "This is why service staff should use the back entrance," he said. Several people in the hall reacted at once. Maya kept her eyes on the screen. She forced herself not to look away. The recorded Maya said, "I was told to deliver this here." Preston smiled on the video. "Of course you were." Then his hand moved. The tray flew from Maya's grip. Food scattered across the floor. The receipt slipped away. A cup rolled under a chair. The sound of it filled the hall. No one at the fundraiser spoke. On the screen, Maya bent down to pick up the tray. Preston leaned over her. "Don't start crying for a lawsuit," he said. "People like you see a rich name and suddenly remember your pride." The video paused. Marcus looked at the audience. "That," he said, "was the first lie. He told the world she caused a disturbance. You just saw who caused it." Preston's voice came out sharp. "That clip proves nothing." Marcus nodded once. "You're right. It only proves what you did to her in public." He clicked another file. "This next one proves what you did in private." Donovan turned fully toward his son now, and for the first time that night, Preston Blackwood looked less like an heir and more like a man hearing footsteps behind a locked door. Maya stood in the aisle, feeling every stare, every breath, every whispered judgment shifting around her. 3 weeks ago, a rich man had knocked her lunch tray to the floor and expected her to disappear with the mess. But now the mess was on the screen, and the whole room was about to see who had really made it. 3 weeks earlier, Maya Williams walked into Blackwood Medical Center with a single rule in mind: stay calm in places where people expect you to look angry. She cleared security quickly and took the elevator straight to the executive floor to deliver a lunch order. She set the tray on the service counter, waiting for a signature. But before the receptionist could grab a pen, Preston Blackwood walked in. He was flanked by 2 assistants, a young attorney, and his silent chief bodyguard, Marcus Reed. Preston stopped dead in his tracks the moment he saw Maya standing in his path. "Move," Preston said. Maya moved slightly to the side. I'm sorry, sir. I'm just waiting for a signature. Then wait somewhere else. Maya kept her voice even. I was told to leave the order here. Preston looked at her uniform, then at the temporary visitor sticker on her chest. Of course you were. Before Maya could take the food to the conference room herself, one of Preston's assistants intentionally brushed past her shoulder. The tray tilted. Maya caught the side before the soup spilled. Careful, she said. Still calm, Preston smiled. He wanted a reaction. He wanted her to raise her voice to give him a story he could use. This is why service staff should use the back entrance, Preston said coldly. I came through the entrance security told me to use. Maya replied, holding his stare. Sign the receipt, and I'll leave. Preston didn't answer. Instead, his hand flashed forward, violently shoving the tray out of Maya's grip. Soup, coffee, and food crashed onto the tile, splattering everywhere. The loud crash brought the entire executive floor to a dead halt. You knocked it out of my hand, Maya said, her voice shaking with suppressed anger. Preston lifted both palms and looked around the room at the silent staff. Did anyone see me touch her? No one spoke. The receptionist, the attorney, and the bystanders all stared at their phones, choosing safety over truth. Preston leaned closer, his voice dropping to a venomous whisper. Don't start crying for a lawsuit. People like you see a rich name and suddenly remember your pride. Maya knelt down to retrieve the receipt near Preston's polished shoe. Please move your foot, she said. Preston smiled cruelly. Say it nicer. Marcus stepped between them instantly. She said, please, Mr. Blackwood. And I'm remembering who I work for and who I am. Preston's eyes narrowed. You're forgetting your place, Marcus. Maya stood up, clutching the stained receipt. As she moved, her sleeve pulled back, exposing the small birthmark near her left wrist, shaped exactly like a bird in flight. Marcus froze, staring at her wrist as if the entire building had disappeared around him. The controlled look on his face completely shattered. Were you at Briar Glen 17 years ago? Marcus asked, his voice tight. Maya pulled her sleeve down quickly. You have the wrong woman. No, Marcus said, taking a step closer. No, I don't. Preston snapped his fingers. Enough. She's leaving. Maya turned toward the elevator and pressed the button. When she looked back at Marcus, her eyes were hard and guarded. Men with money forget fires, she said. Women like me remember who got left in the smoke. Maya had to stand alone, humiliated and cornered in front of everyone. If you feel sorry for Maya and want to stand up for her dignity, please like this video and comment where you are watching from, because there may be people near you watching Maya's story too. The elevator doors opened, and she stepped inside. As the doors began to close, Preston's angry shout echoed through the hallway. Find out who she is, and make sure she regrets coming here. The doors shut on Maya's face, but Marcus Reed knew this was no longer about a ruined tray on the floor. It was about a debt that was finally turning due. Marcus Reed did not move when the elevator doors closed. For the first time in years, his hand trembled. Preston saw it and mistook it for weakness. What was that? Preston demanded. Briar Glen? Are you out of your mind? Marcus turned slowly. You need to tell your assistant not to file that report. Preston laughed, but there was no humor in it. You don't give instructions here. I'm giving you a warning. That made Preston step closer. He was shorter than Marcus, but money had taught him to stand as if height belonged to him too. Careful, Preston said. My father trusts you because you're useful. Don't confuse that with being family. Marcus held his stare. I never have. The attorney cleared his throat. Mr. Blackwood, from a liability standpoint, the incident report should be completed. If she claims mistreatment, we need a record that she was disruptive. Marcus looked at him. She wasn't disruptive. The attorney adjusted his cuff. That may be your perception. It was on camera. Preston smiled again. Then we'll review the camera. Marcus heard what he meant. We will decide what the camera says. The receptionist sat frozen behind the counter, fingers hovering over the keyboard. Marcus saw the fear in her face. She was not evil. Most people in rooms like this were not evil. They were employed. They had mortgages, aging parents, health insurance, car payments. and a quiet understanding that rich men did not need to threaten directly when everybody already knew the cost of disobedience. Preston pointed at her. "Write it." She began typing. Marcus turned away before anger made him careless. He walked to the elevator and pressed the button. Preston called after him. "Where are you going?" "To do my job." "Your job is with me." Marcus looked back. "No, sir. My job is to protect this family from threats. Sometimes the threat is outside the door. Sometimes it's standing in the lunch area making enemies it doesn't understand." Preston's face hardened. "You're done for the day." Marcus did not answer. The elevator opened. He stepped inside. By the time he reached the ground floor, Maya was already near the exit, walking fast with the ruined receipt folded in her hand. Marcus caught up but kept a respectful distance. "Miss Williams." She stopped near the security desk but did not turn around. "I said I don't need anything." "I know what you said." "Then listen to it." "I can't." That made her turn. Marcus had faced armed men overseas, drunk executives at private events, angry protesters outside shareholder meetings, and one senator's son who thought a badge on a lapel made him untouchable. None of them looked at him the way Maya did in that moment, with tired eyes that had learned to measure danger without flinching. "You can," she said. "You just don't want to." Marcus lowered his voice. "That mark on your wrist. I saw it 17 years ago." Maya's face closed. "Lots of people have birthmarks. Not that one. You don't know me." "No. But I know Briar Glen." For a moment, the noise of the lobby seemed to pull back. Maya looked toward the doors, then back at him. "Say that name softer." Marcus understood. "I'm sorry." "No, you're not. You're curious." "I'm alive because of that night." Her expression changed by a fraction. Not enough to soften, enough to show she had heard him. Marcus continued. "There was smoke in the east stairwell. I was pinned near the second-floor landing. I remember someone pulling at my jacket and telling me not to close my eyes." Maya's fingers tightened around the receipt. Marcus took that as permission to finish. "I remember a young woman coughing so hard she could barely speak, but she kept saying, 'Get up, soldier. You're not dying on this floor.' I wasn't a soldier then, not anymore, but she said it like an order. So I listened." Maya looked away. There it was. Not proof for a court. Not yet. But truth had a way of making people look anywhere except at the person who had found it. "I don't know what you think you remember," she said. "I remember the mark. Then remember this too," Maya said, turning back sharply. "Whoever that woman was, she didn't get a medal. She didn't get a phone call. She didn't get her school bills paid. She didn't get her name in a report. She got questions. She got silence. She got told to move on." Marcus absorbed that, like a deserved blow. "I looked for her." Maya gave a small, bitter smile. "Rich people always look after. The damage is old enough not to cost them much. I wasn't rich, but you worked for them. That landed harder because it was true now, even if it had not been true then." The older guard at the desk glanced over. Marcus shifted his body slightly, giving Maya privacy without blocking her way. "I need you to meet Donovan Blackwood," he said. "No. He needs to know. He needed to know 17 years ago. You may be the only person who can reopen what happened." Maya laughed once, quiet and humorless. "Reopen? Mr. Reed, I have spent 17 years keeping that door closed because every time I touched the handle, somebody on the other side reminded me I didn't have the right last name." Marcus said nothing. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Do you know what happens when a black woman without money says a powerful family lied? They don't investigate the lie. They investigate her. I won't let that happen." Maya studied him, and for a second he saw how young she must have been in that fire. Too young to carry what she had carried. Too young to be erased. "You don't have that kind of power," she said. "No," Marcus admitted, "but I have memory, and I know where to start looking." Maya shook her head. "Memory won't protect me from men like Preston." "No. Evidence will." The word made her pause. Marcus reached into his jacket, pulled out a card, and held it toward her. She did not take it. "My personal number," he said. "Not Blackwood's office. Not security dispatch. Mine." Maya looked at the card like it might turn into a subpoena. "I'm not calling you." Then keep it in case you need to prove I approached you first. That was the right thing to say. He saw it in her eyes. Not trust, but recognition that he understood the rules of a game she had been forced to play. She took the card. "Do not come to my home," she said. "I won't. Do not talk to my employer. I won't. Do not put my name in your boss's mouth unless you have something stronger than a memory." Marcus nodded. Understood. Maya started to leave, then stopped. And Marcus, "Yes, ma'am. If Preston sends people after me, don't act surprised. Men like that don't get embarrassed. They get even." She walked out through the front doors before he could answer. Marcus stood in the lobby with the words still in the air. At the security desk, the older guard looked at him. "You all right, Mr. Reed?" "No." The guard hesitated. "That woman in trouble?" Marcus looked toward the elevators Preston had not yet used. "She will be. Upstairs." Preston was already turning irritation into strategy. By the time Marcus returned to the executive floor, the spilled food had been cleaned. The tray was gone. The receipt was gone. The receptionist's face was pale. Preston stood near the window with his phone to his ear. "No, not tomorrow," Preston said. "Now. I want her name, her address, her work history, anything public, anything sealed, anything somebody can get unsealed." Marcus stopped 10 feet away. Preston looked at him while continuing the call. "And pull the security footage before anyone else asks for it. If there's audio, I want legal to review it first," Marcus said. "You don't need to do this." Preston ended the call. "You really think she's someone important, don't you?" "I think you made a mistake." "No, Marcus. A mistake is ordering the wrong wine at dinner. That woman saw an opportunity. She was delivering lunch." Preston walked toward him. "You know what my father always says? Every crisis is either a threat or an asset. She's not an asset. She's a human being." Preston stared at him as if the phrase bored him. "Sentiment makes men sloppy," he said. "That's why you carry the earpiece, and I carry the name." Marcus kept his voice low. "That name won't protect you from the truth." Preston smiled. "It usually does." Then he leaned in, close enough that only Marcus could hear. "And if your little birthmark theory becomes a problem, I'll make sure everyone knows you're an aging security guard with trauma from an old fire and a grudge against the family that employed him." Marcus did not move. Preston tapped his chest lightly with 2 fingers. Not hard, not violent, just insulting. "Stay useful." Marcus watched him walk away. For 17 years, he had carried one question. Who was the woman who pulled him out of Briar Glen? Now he had her name, Maya Williams. And before the day was over, Preston Blackwood had given Marcus a second question. One far more dangerous. How many lies had the Blackwood family buried to make sure no one else ever found it? By the time Maya reached her apartment that night, the first phone call had already come and gone. It was her landlord's assistant, polite in the way people were polite when they were about to become difficult. "Miss Williams, I just wanted to remind you that rent is due Friday." Maya stood in her kitchen with one hand on the counter and the other still holding Marcus Reed's card. "It always is. We received a notice from the building office about missed payment history." "History?" Maya repeated. "Yes, ma'am. Just standard policy. Standard policy." That phrase again. Another way for people to sound clean while they made the floor disappear under your feet. "I'll pay what I owe," Maya said. "We appreciate that." The line clicked dead before Maya could answer. She looked around her apartment. A small table, a chair with one broken leg, a stack of unpaid bills under a bowl of oranges that had gone soft 2 days ago. Nothing in the room looked expensive enough to survive a conversation with the Blackwood family. She set the card down beside the sink and stared at it. Marcus Reed. Private number. She did not call. Not yet. The next morning, her phone buzzed before sunrise. Dispatch had removed her from 2 deliveries. When she called the office, the scheduler sounded uncomfortable. "Maya, I'm sorry. Someone from Blackwood Medical Center requested that your access to the building be paused." "For what reason?" There was a pause. "They said there was an incident yesterday." Maya closed her eyes. "There was no incident. There was a rich man with a temper." "I know," the scheduler said quickly. Too quickly. "But they sent a note. Official complaint." "From who?" I can't really say. Yes, you can. Another pause. Then softer. Preston Blackwood. Maya leaned against the counter. He had not just humiliated her. He was trying to erase the fact that she had ever been there. Okay, she said. Maya, as you want. I can ask them to reconsider after. It's fine. She ended the call before her voice could show anything else. At 9:30, her next phone call was from a number she did not know. Miss Williams? A man asked. Yes. This is Detective Halden, with the Midtown Precinct. We'd like you to come down and answer a few questions regarding a corporate theft complaint. Maya went still. Corporate theft? Yes, ma'am. Blackwood Medical Center says you were seen near restricted files and may have removed confidential documents. I never took anything. Then it should be quick. No, Maya said. It won't be quick if you're calling me about a lie. The detective's voice flattened. Miss Williams, you can come voluntarily, or we can arrange it another way. Maya gripped the phone harder. Who filed this? I can't discuss that over the phone. Was it Preston Blackwood? Silence. That was answer enough. Ma'am, the detective said at last. I recommend you cooperate. Maya hung up. Her hands were shaking now, not from fear, but from the ugly, familiar anger of being cornered by someone who expected her to be grateful for the trap being offered politely. Marcus Reed's card lay on the table. She stared at it for a long moment, then picked up the phone and dialed. He answered on the second ring. Miss Williams, you set me up, she said. No, ma'am. Your people just called me a thief. Marcus said nothing for a beat. Where are you? At home. Do not answer the door for anyone in a suit. Do not go to the precinct alone. I'm on my way. Maya laughed once, without humor. You think you can fix this? I think I can slow it down. That's not the same thing. No, he said. It isn't. She almost ended the call there, but something in his voice stopped her. Not kindness, not certainty, something harder. He sounded angry. Good. Anger was honest. Marcus, she said, if you show up here, you better come with more than a promise. I will. He arrived 20 minutes later in a dark sedan with tinted windows and a face that had not slept much since the night before. He did not come alone. He brought a manila folder and a tired-looking woman in a gray suit. This is Linda Park, Marcus said. She's not Blackwood Counsel. She works for the Foundation Compliance Office, and she still believes in paperwork. Linda gave Maya a brief nod. Miss Williams. Maya stayed by the doorway. If you're here to apologize for the rich boy, save it. I'm here because there are things you need to see, Linda said. Marcus opened the folder and spread the contents on the table without asking permission. Maya looked down at copies of the incident report, a visitor log, a flagged email, and a note from security. The report said she had become verbally aggressive. Maya let out a breath through her nose. I said 3 sentences. That was the first lie, Marcus said. He pointed to the security note. This one was filed 5 minutes after you left. Preston ordered it. Maya read it, then looked up. Why are you showing me this? Because the second lie is worse, Linda said. Blackwood Legal already sent the complaint to the precinct. Maya stared at her. For what? Linda did not soften the answer. They're building a case that you stole confidential materials and attempted to extort the company. The room went silent. Maya looked at Marcus. You said evidence would protect me. It still can, he said. Then where is it? Marcus slid one more document across the table. A building access log. One line was highlighted in yellow. Your badge was used to enter the records corridor, he said. But the timestamp doesn't match your delivery route. Maya looked at the paper. I never went to the records corridor. I know. Then somebody used my name. Marcus nodded. Yes. Maya's laugh came out sharp this time. Of course they did. Linda folded her hands. Blackwood Security is preparing to say the footage shows you inside a restricted area. Maya turned to Marcus. And you believe them? No. Why not? Because Preston called the complaint before the timeline even existed. That made her pause. Marcus continued. He's not reacting, Maya. He's covering. Maya glanced at the documents again, then at the woman in the gray suit. Why? Are you helping me? Linda hesitated. Because my father worked in a factory for 30 years, and I know what it looks like when people with power decide a working woman makes a convenient problem. That landed. Maya nodded once. The sound of a knock hit the apartment door. All three of them turned. Another knock. Firm. Official. Marcus moved first, stepping between Maya and the door. Do not open it. Who is it? Maya asked. Linda looked toward the peephole. That's the precinct. They got here fast. Marcus took the card back out of his pocket, then held it up. This is why I came now. Preston is moving before he has to answer questions. The knocking came again. A man's voice called from the hall. Miss Williams, Midtown Precinct. We need to speak with you. Maya didn't move. Marcus met her eyes. If you open that door alone, they'll write the story before you even get a lawyer. Another knock. Louder. Maya looked from Marcus to Linda, then at the legal pad on her table, where she had written her rent due date and 2 grocery items she could no longer afford. She understood then what Preston had done. He had not just wanted to scare her. He wanted to make the pressure so immediate that she would panic, make a mistake, and give them the excuse they needed. Maya straightened her shoulders. Tell them to wait, she said. Marcus shook his head. They won't. Then we don't give them anything. He nodded once. And for the first time since she met him, Maya saw not just a bodyguard, but a man preparing for a fight that had already crossed the line into his conscience. Linda picked up the folder. There's one more thing. What? She handed Maya a printout with a grainy still image from security footage. It showed a woman in a visitor badge, standing near a restricted hallway. Maya frowned. That's not me. I know, Marcus said. The woman in the image wore her hair pulled back and her face half turned away. But the visitor badge was visible. Preston had built a body double out of bad camera angles and timing. Maya read the date stamp, then looked up slowly. He planned this before I even left the building, she said. Yes, Marcus said. The knocking stopped. Then, from the hallway, a new voice spoke, lower and more impatient. Ma'am, we have a warrant application ready. I'd suggest you cooperate before this gets harder. Maya looked at Marcus, then at Linda, and finally at the door. For the first time since the lunch tray fell, she did not feel confused. She felt hunted, and now she knew exactly who was doing it. Marcus did not let the knock on Maya's door become a conversation. He stepped to the side, checked the hallway through the peephole, then looked back at her with the same cold focus he had used in the fundraiser hall. They're not coming in yet. Yet? Maya asked. Linda closed the folder she had brought. If the warrant gets signed, they'll try again. Maya folded her arms. Then they'd better get used to being disappointed. Marcus nodded once, like that was the answer he expected. We need to move. Move where? Somewhere they haven't already written a story for. That was how Maya ended up in the back seat of Marcus Reed's sedan, with Linda Park in the front and the city passing by in hard, gray streaks through tinted windows. No one spoke for the first few minutes. Maya sat upright, hands clasped in her lap, watching reflections slide across the glass. Every time a white vehicle followed too long, her shoulders tightened. Marcus noticed. Nobody's touching you today. Maya gave a short, tired laugh. That sounded better in your head. It was supposed to. Linda turned in her seat just enough to face them. I've stalled the precinct for now. If they try to push the warrant, legal will want a paper trail. That buys us time, not safety. Maya looked at her. You keep saying, we, like you've already picked a side. Linda held her gaze. I have. I'm just late. Marcus drove east, away from Blackwood Medical Center, away from the polished buildings and the quiet thread of men who smiled while they tightened ropes. After 20 minutes, he pulled into a narrow lane behind a retired fire station that had been turned into a city archive annex. The sign out front was faded, the kind of place most people drove past without looking twice. Maya glanced at it. Why are we here? Because Briar Glen was built from the same files that disappear here, Marcus said. That got her attention. Inside, the air smelled like paper, dust, and old coffee. A woman at the front desk looked up over her glasses, then softened when she recognized Marcus. Mr. Reed, she said. "You're not here for a social visit." "No, ma'am." She looked at Maya, then at Linda. "And this is not a social group." Linda gave a small nod. "We need archived records on Briar Glen. Fire incident, 17 years ago. Any photographs, any intake logs, any incident amendments." The woman's expression changed slightly at the name. Not surprise. Recognition. "I remember that file," she said. "People came in asking questions for weeks. Then the questions stopped." Maya's voice was low. "Who made them stop?" The woman looked from one face to another, measuring how much trouble this could become. Then she reached under the desk and pulled out a key card. "Follow me." She led them to a side room with metal shelves and gray boxes stacked to the ceiling. Marcus stayed close to Maya, not touching, just there. Linda began scanning labels. The archive woman opened a cabinet and handed over a box marked Briar Glen Fire Response. 17 years closed. Maya stared at the label. Closed by who? The woman shrugged. "That's the question, isn't it?" Linda opened the box first. Inside were clipped reports, a photo envelope, a handwritten intake sheet, and one folder with a red stamp across the front. Amended. Marcus took the photo envelope and slid out 3 black and white images. One showed the side entrance of the building after the fire. Another showed responders carrying someone out. The third showed a young woman seated on a curb, head down, wrist wrapped in gauze. Maya's throat tightened before she could stop it. Marcus pointed to the wrist. "There." Maya took the photo from him. Her fingers hovered over the image, not quite touching it. "That's not enough." "No," Marcus said. "But it's a start." Linda had already opened the intake sheet. "This line is missing." Maya stepped closer. "What line?" Linda turned the paper toward them. "There's a note here that says the unidentified female witness provided a name and contact number. The next line has been cut out." Marcus leaned in. "Can you tell what it said?" Linda shook her head. "It's been physically removed." Maya exhaled slowly through her nose. "So, they didn't just forget me. They pulled me out." The archive woman, who had been pretending not to listen, finally spoke. "That wasn't the only thing that disappeared." She walked to another shelf and returned with a second folder. This one had a county property seal. When Briar Glen was still being investigated, there were questions about safety violations, she said. Locked stairwells, bad wiring. Inspectors raised flags. Then the building owners hired a very expensive legal team, and the records got a lot cleaner. Marcus looked up. "Blackwood?" The woman's mouth tightened. "I didn't say that." "You didn't have to," Linda said. Maya turned one page, then another. "This says the fire report was amended after a meeting with corporate counsel." Marcus took the page from her. "And the counsel name?" Linda pointed. "Same law firm that handled the complaint against Maya." Silence settled over the room. Maya let out one short breath. "So Preston isn't just trying to destroy me because I embarrassed him." Marcus looked at her. "No. He's protecting a history." The archive woman folded her hands. "If you're asking me to testify, I'll tell you now. I don't like courts, and I don't like rich families. But I also don't like watching old sins walk around in tailored suits." Maya gave her a faint, surprised look. The woman returned it with a steady one of her own. "That fire took people's names before it took anything else." Linda set the amended folder down. "We need a copy of everything." "You can scan it," the woman said. "But if Blackwood Legal finds out you were here, they'll try to seal it again." Marcus looked at Maya. "That's why we came before the warrant lands." Maya pressed the photo of herself in the gauze wrap against the table. "And after this?" Marcus did not answer right away. Then he said, "After this, Preston has to explain why a complaint about lunch turned into a corporate theft case." Maya's eyes narrowed. "You think he'll stop there?" "No." Linda shut the amended folder. "People like Preston never stop at the first lie. They keep building until the whole house is false." Maya looked down at the photo again. The young woman in the image was not smiling. She was exhausted, angry, maybe, hurt, but still upright. She slid the photo back into the envelope. "I don't need a hero story," she said. "I need proof." Marcus nodded. "Then we keep digging." The archive woman pointed to a side copier. Take the scans. Take the index sheet. Take the meeting note if you can read the handwriting. And when you leave, don't come back in one obvious car. Linda almost smiled. That's probably the best advice we've had all day. Maya gathered the copies into a neat stack. Her hands were steady now. Not calm. Steady. There was a difference. As they headed back toward the door, Marcus's phone buzzed. He checked the screen and went still. "What is it?" Maya asked. He looked up. The precinct got their warrant signed. Linda cursed under her breath. "How fast?" Marcus turned the phone so they could see the message. One line stood out. Debt. Halden amended complaint filed. Charges upgraded. Suspect to be taken in immediately. Maya stared at it, then at Marcus. Suspect? Marcus closed his hand around the phone. That's Preston's next move. He's trying to make the police arrive first and the truth arrive later. Maya lifted her chin. Then, let's make sure the truth gets there first. Marcus met her eyes, and this time, there was no hesitation in him at all. That's exactly what we're doing. They didn't wait long for the precinct to act. By the time Maya, Marcus, and Linda Park got back to Marcus's sedan, 2 unmarked cars had already rolled into the lot at the edge of the archive annex. One officer stepped out first, then another. Detective Halden was with them, jacket open, expression flat, the kind of face that belonged to men who liked paperwork because it let them hide behind it. Marcus saw them and moved half a step in front of Maya without making a show of it. Halden looked from Marcus to Linda to Maya. Maya Williams. Maya met his eyes. "You know my name. I'm confirming identity." "For what?" Halden held up a folder. Amended complaint. Blackwood Medical Center is alleging theft of confidential material and attempted extortion. We need you to come with us. Maya laughed once, sharp and disbelieving. "You can't be serious." Halden didn't blink. "I'm very serious." Linda stepped in. "Detective, before you do anything else, you should know there's a documented conflict between the complainant and my client, and we have evidence of tampering." Halden's gaze shifted to her. "And you are?" "Counselor Linda Park, Foundation Compliance." He gave a thin nod that meant nothing. "Then you know how this works. If she's innocent, she can say that downtown." Marcus spoke before Maya did. "She is not going anywhere alone." Halden looked him over, like he was deciding whether Marcus was a problem he wanted to manage now or later. "This is a police matter." "No," Marcus said. "It's a Blackwood matter pretending to be one." The second officer took a step closer. "Sir, back up." Maya lifted her hand slightly. "Marcus, don't." He didn't look at her. "They want her scared enough to talk." Halden sighed. "Miss Williams, this will be easier if you cooperate." "Easier for who?" Maya asked. "Because it's not easier for me. I'm being accused of a crime I didn't commit by people who already tried to bury my name once." The detective's mouth tightened. "I don't care about family history. I care about the warrant." Linda opened her folder and held up the archive copies. "Then you should care that the complaint was filed before the alleged evidence existed." Halden looked at the papers but didn't take them. "That's for later." "That's the point," Linda said. "You're skipping the part where the evidence actually gets tested." The detective glanced at the other car, then back at Maya. "You can come quietly, or we can do this in front of everybody in the lot." Maya looked past him at the archive annex door, where the old woman from the records room was watching through the glass with a hand over her mouth. Maya had spent too many years learning what public humiliation did to people like her. It didn't just embarrass you, it taught other people how to treat you afterward. She straightened. "I'm not going anywhere with you until you tell me who filed the amended complaint." Halden gave a short, tired smile. "Miss Williams, I don't need your permission to ask questions, and I don't need to answer them without a lawyer." Marcus nodded once. "Good." Halden's eyes moved to him. "You keep pushing this, and you'll become part of the report." Marcus answered evenly, then write carefully. That made the detective look at Maya again, colder now. "You really want to do this the hard way?" Maya's voice stayed calm. "The hard way was your idea." Before Halden could answer, Marcus's phone buzzed. He checked it once and swore under his breath. "What now?" Maya asked. Marcus looked up. Donovan Blackwood wants a meeting. Halden arched a brow. That fast? Marcus ignored him and turned to Maya. He's asking you to come to the foundation office. Now. Maya stared at him. Why? Because he's seen enough of this to know someone is lying. Halden folded his arms. Or because his son told him to clean up the mess. Linda shook her head. If that were true, he wouldn't be asking for Maya. He'd be asking for a statement. Maya looked between them. The precinct, the warrant, the folder in Linda's hand, the old archive records, Preston's name attached to every ugly part of the day. Then she looked at Marcus, who had not once tried to soften the truth for her. Is this a trap? She asked. Marcus answered without hesitation. It could be, but if it is, it's one we can use. That was not comfort. It was honesty. Maya respected that more. Fine, she said. But I'm not going alone. Halden stepped forward. You're not in a position to negotiate. Marcus moved just enough to block him again. She is. For a second, the lot went still. Then Halden exhaled through his nose and made a call with 2 fingers lifted to his ear. Maya watched him. Who are you calling? He didn't answer right away. Then, almost reluctantly, Blackwood, legal. Of course you are, Maya said. 10 minutes later, the sedan was moving again, this time with Marcus driving, Linda in the front, and Maya in the back, with the archive copies pressed against her lap like evidence could keep her steady by weight alone. Halden's unmarked car followed behind them. The Blackwood Group office tower sat downtown, all glass and money and people who never had to explain why their names opened doors. Maya had seen buildings like this before. They always claimed to be neutral. They never were. Marcus parked at the side entrance. Stay close. Maya gave him a look. You say that like I have options. You do now. Inside, the lobby guard already knew who Marcus was. He looked at Maya, hesitated, then scanned her badge against a visitor clipboard. The hesitation was enough. People were already reading the story wrong and they hadn't even heard it yet. They were taken to a conference room on the 12th floor. Donovan Blackwood was waiting, alone except for one legal assistant at the far end of the room. He stood when Maya entered, not out of warmth, but out of recognition that the room had already changed. He was older than Preston by decades, cleaner in his movements, quieter in his power. A man who had spent years being obeyed. Maya Williams, he said. Maya didn't sit. Mr. Blackwood. Donovan looked at the archive copies on the table. Marcus told me you went to records. We went to fax, Maya said. That drew a flicker in his face. Not surprise. Interest. Marcus placed the photo envelope on the table, then the amended report. Linda added the access logs. Donovan looked down at all of it, in silence. Finally, he asked, Did you really save people at Briar Glen? Maya met his eyes. Yes. And no one documented you? Not properly. Donovan's jaw tightened. Why didn't you come forward after? Maya almost laughed. You think I didn't? The room went quieter. I came forward to an insurance investigator. I came forward to a city clerk. I came forward to a reporter who said he'd call me back. Then, I watched the file change without my name in it, and I learned exactly what kind of family had that kind of reach. Donovan looked down at the amended folder again. And now my son has involved police. Yes, Maya said. Now your son has done that. Linda opened the access log and slid it toward him. The complaint was filed after someone used Miss Williams's visitor credentials in a restricted corridor she never entered. Donovan studied the page. Preston's name isn't on this, Marcus answered. No. He prefers other people to sign things for him. Donovan sat back slowly, and for the first time his composure looked expensive rather than strong. Did Preston know the complaint would be filed? He asked. Maya folded her arms. He told me he'd make the police see me his way. That landed. The legal assistant at the far end of the room lowered his eyes. Donovan rubbed a hand over his mouth. If this is true, I need to know everything. Maya looked at him a long moment. You need to know whether you want the truth, or whether you want something you can survive. He didn't answer fast enough. Marcus did it for him. That's the choice, sir. Donovan looked up at Maya then, and for the first time his voice lost some of its polish. Stay here. Don't speak to anyone else. Not until I understand exactly what my son has done. Maya gave a short nod. You should have said that years ago. Donovan accepted the blow without defending himself. Outside the room, a phone rang once, then again. Marcus checked the number on the caller ID and stiffened. Preston, he said. Maya watched his face harden. Marcus answered. Yes, sir. A pause. Then Marcus's eyes moved to Maya. Preston's voice came through the speaker, faint but sharp. The room didn't need to hear every word to know what it meant. The game had moved again, and this time, Preston Blackwood was calling because he knew Maya had reached the one place his lies could no longer control. Preston's call ended as suddenly as it had begun, leaving the conference room with a silence that felt heavier than the files on the table. Marcus kept the phone in his hand for a second longer than necessary. He knows. Donovan looked up. Knows what? Enough, Marcus said. He's moving. Maya stood near the glass wall with her arms folded, watching the city behind her instead of the men in the room. Of course he is. Donovan pushed his chair back and stood. Bring him in here. Marcus shook his head once. He won't come in polite. That proved true 20 seconds later when Preston burst through the conference room door with no knock, no apology, and no attempt to hide his irritation. He was still dressed like a man who had never had to wait for anything in his life. 2 assistants lingered behind him in the hallway, and a legal runner from Blackwood's office was already hovering with a thin folder. Preston's eyes landed on Maya first. Well, he said. Now I see why the room feels so dramatic. Donovan's voice turned sharp. Sit down, Preston. Preston did not sit. I don't think this needs to be formal, Dad. We all know what's happening here. Maya turned toward him. Do we? Preston smiled like he had expected that. You were in the building. You made a scene. And now you're trying to turn it into a story where I'm the villain. Marcus stepped a little closer to Maya without speaking. Preston noticed. Still protecting strangers, Marcus? That's admirable. Expensive, but admirable. Donovan slapped one hand flat on the table. Enough. You called security on this woman. You pushed a police complaint. You will explain yourself. Preston's expression barely changed. I'm protecting the family. By accusing her of theft? Donovan snapped. By preventing leverage, Preston said calmly. Then he looked at Maya, as if she were something he had found on the bottom of his shoe. People like her don't show up in rooms like this by accident. Maya's face went still. Linda, who had remained quiet near the door, spoke up. That's not going to help you. Preston glanced at her. And you are? Someone who reads documents before she signs them. Preston nodded toward the runner in the hall. The young man stepped forward and placed the thin folder on the table. Preston said, Since we're all here, we can skip the pretending. He opened the folder and slid a page toward Maya. At the top, it read, Confidential Resolution Agreement. Maya didn't touch it. Preston tapped the page. Sign that, and we stop this nonsense. Marcus looked at him. You're offering a settlement after filing false charges? I'm offering closure, Preston said. Most people confuse the two. Maya finally looked down at the page. What exactly am I closing? Preston folded his hands. The medical center complaint, the police matter, the stolen files rumor, the ugly little story that's starting to gather attention. Sign the agreement. Accept compensation for your inconvenience. And everyone walks away intact. Maya gave a short, disbelieving laugh. Compensation for my inconvenience? Preston's jaw tightened. Do not make this harder than it has to be. Harder? Maya repeated. You had my access paused. You sent a complaint to the precinct. You called me a thief. And now you're asking me to sign a paper so you can call it a misunderstanding. Preston's eyes stayed fixed on her. I'm trying to spare you. From what? From being dragged through a process you will not win. Marcus cut in. Because you've already bent the process. Preston did not look at him. You keep saying that, Marcus, but you don't have the power to prove it. Donovan took the settlement paper and read the first page. His face changed line by line. This includes a non-disclosure agreement. Non-disclosure, Preston answered smoothly. Of course it does. Maya stared at him. You want silence. I want protection. You want me quiet. Preston's voice dropped, almost kind. Maya, listen to me. You're a smart woman. You know how this works. People like you say the wrong thing in the wrong room, and suddenly the room becomes your problem. This lets you leave with something useful instead of walking into a fight you can't afford. Maya looked at him for a long second. You mean you want me to leave with money? So I stopped telling the truth. Preston's smile thinned. I mean, I'm being generous. Linda leaned toward Donovan and pointed to a line near the bottom. This agreement also prevents her from discussing the Briar Glen fire. That brought the room down another level. Donovan looked up slowly. Why would that be in here? Preston answered too fast. Because she brought it up. Maya's voice went colder. I brought it up? Preston shrugged. Marcus started chasing ghosts because of a birthmark. That's not my problem. Marcus's eyes hardened. You know exactly what this is about. Preston finally turned to him. What I know is that a woman with an old injury and a bad memory showed up in my family's world, and now everybody is acting like I did something criminal. Maya stepped forward for the first time. You know what you did. Preston met her halfway with that polished, poisonous calm rich men used when they wanted cruelty to sound like reason. I know you were in a building you had no business entering. I know you were seen near restricted files. I know you were angry when you left. And I know that if this keeps going, people will ask questions that won't help you. Maya stared at him. You're threatening me. Preston spread his hands. I'm explaining consequences. Marcus reached for the folder, but Donovan put a hand out to stop him. Not yet. Preston noticed the movement and smiled slightly. See? Your father understands business. Donovan's voice was flat. I understand extortion. Preston didn't flinch. Call it what you want, but if she signs, the precinct closes the file, the foundation avoids a scandal, and nobody has to dig up old mistakes. Maya looked at Donovan. That's what your son thinks I am. A scandal. Donovan's eyes went to Preston, and for the first time there was something in them Preston couldn't charm away. Not anger, not yet. Recognition. Linda spoke quietly. Mr. Blackwood, if this agreement is designed to keep Miss Williams from speaking about a crime or a false accusation, it's going to create a bigger problem. Preston scoffed. What crime? Linda held up the archive copy from Briar Glen. The kind that leaves paper trails. Preston's face changed by a fraction. Maya saw it. Marcus saw it too. He had not expected the records room to exist. He had expected fear, confusion, maybe a signature, not paper. Donovan read the first page again, then the next. His voice lowered. You pushed this, without my approval. Preston answered. I handled it. That's not what I asked. Preston finally showed irritation. Dad, you were in the middle of a fundraiser speech. I wasn't going to let a delivery worker turn this into a family crisis. Maya's eyes flashed. Delivery worker? Preston looked straight at her. Yes, that's what you are. Marcus's voice came out quiet and dangerous. Careful. Preston turned to him. Or what? For a second, nobody moved. Not the assistants in the hall. Not the legal runner. Not Linda. Not Donovan. Even Preston seemed to realize he had gone one sentence too far. Maya picked up the agreement at last, glanced at the page, then set it down without signing. No, she said. Preston blinked once. Excuse me? I said no. Preston's face hardened. You don't understand what you're refusing. Yes, Maya said. I do. I'm refusing your version of my life. Donovan stared at her, then at his son, then back at the paper on the table. Preston had expected fear. What he got instead was the one thing he couldn't buy, couldn't threaten, and couldn't redirect. A refusal. Maya looked him in the eye and said, If you want me silent, stop lying. Preston's voice went low and sharp. Then don't say I didn't offer you a way out. Maya nodded once. That wasn't a way out. That was a leash. Silence fell across the room. Then Donovan reached for the settlement agreement, folded it once, and placed it back in front of his son. Get out, he said. Preston stared at him. What? You heard me. Preston looked at the folder, then at Maya, then at Marcus. His expression did not break, but the control around it did. You're really siding with her? Donovan's answer was immediate. I'm siding with the truth. Preston's jaw tightened. He picked up the folder, but not before giving Maya one last look, cool and deliberate. "This isn't over," he said. Maya didn't blink. "I know." Preston left the room with the kind of silence that promised retaliation, and this time, everyone in the room understood exactly what that silence meant. The room stayed frozen long after Preston left. No one spoke. Even the legal assistant near the wall kept his eyes on the floor, as if looking up might turn him into the next target. Donovan stood with one hand braced on the back of his chair, his jaw set hard enough to crack stone. Maya did not sit down. Marcus broke the silence first. "He's going to move fast." Linda was already gathering the papers Preston had left behind. "He doesn't have to move fast. He just has to move first." Donovan looked at Maya. "You should not be here alone." Maya let out a short breath. "I wasn't alone until your son decided I was a threat." Donovan took that in without argument, which told Maya more than any apology could have. Men like him did not surrender easily. They recalculated. Marcus checked his phone. "Security is reporting activity at the precinct." Linda frowned. "What kind of activity?" Marcus read the message once, then again. An amended complaint was filed 15 minutes ago. Maya's stomach tightened. "For what?" Marcus looked up. "Treason-level exaggeration in a business suit. They've upgraded the allegations." Linda reached for the phone in his hand. "Let me see." He handed it over. She scanned the screen, and her face changed. Attempted extortion, theft of confidential files, unauthorized access to restricted records, and now they're claiming you removed materials with the intent to sell them. Maya stared at her. "Sell them to who?" Linda gave a humorless laugh. "Doesn't matter. The accusation is supposed to do the damage before the answer arrives." Donovan turned toward the legal assistant. "Get Blackwood counsel on the line." The assistant hesitated. "Mr. Blackwood, if I may, the foundation office is already handling incoming calls from the precinct. Then tell them to stop handling and start explaining." The assistant hurried out. Marcus stepped closer to Maya. "We need to go before the police decide to come here." "Come here?" Maya repeated. "Yes," Linda said. "If they've got an amended complaint, they'll want to make it look like they found you resisting cooperation." Maya gave a slow nod. Not because she was calm, because fear had become too familiar to waste time on. "So Preston wants me arrested in the building, where he humiliated me." Marcus's face darkened. "That's the plan." Donovan looked at her with something close to regret. "I should have called this off the moment he involved law enforcement." Maya looked at him. "You didn't stop him when he called me a thief." The words sat between them. Donovan's voice lowered. "No." Marcus turned to the hallway when footsteps approached. The legal assistant returned with a thin blue folder and looked less composed than before. "Sir," he said, "there's a detachment downstairs." Linda swore under her breath. "Already?" The assistant nodded. 2 officers and a detective." Marcus was moving before the sentence finished. He stepped to the door, checked the hall, then came back. "They're coming up." Maya's spine went rigid. "You said they wouldn't be able to do this without a lawyer." Linda held up the archive copies. "They still need probable cause. That doesn't stop them from trying to scare you into speaking." Maya looked at the papers, then at Donovan. "Are you going to let them walk me out of here?" Donovan did not answer immediately. That silence told her he was still deciding how much of his company he was willing to burn to protect the truth. Marcus answered for him. "No." The knock came exactly 10 seconds later. Then another. "Blackwood Group Legal," a man's voice called from the hall. "We need access to Conference 12. Donovan stepped to the door and opened it himself. 2 officers stood outside with Detective Halden between them. His badge visible, his expression set in that flat professional way that made Maya think of every door she had ever knocked on and every polite refusal she had ever received. Halden's eyes moved past Donovan, past Marcus, and landed on Maya. "There she is," he said. Maya held his gaze. "You sound disappointed." Halden ignored that. "Miss Williams, you're being asked to come with us for questioning." Marcus moved 1 step in front of her. "No." Halden looked at him like a man dealing with an inconvenience. "Sir, this is an active investigation." "No," Marcus said. "This is a coordinated pressure campaign." One of the officers shifted his hand near his belt. "Not threatening. just enough to remind everyone what authority looked like when it wanted to feel physical. Linda stepped in, papers in hand. "Detective, before you say another word, you should know the complaint was filed after the access logs were altered. The timeline doesn't support your warrant request." Halden glanced at her. "And you are?" "A lawyer who doesn't enjoy watching bad faith become procedure." He gave a thin smile. "Then you'll know those arguments happen downtown." Maya felt the room tighten around her. "I'm not going anywhere with you." Halden's gaze sharpened. "You don't get to choose that." Donovan's voice came out colder than she had heard it yet. "On my floor, she does." Halden looked at Donovan briefly. "Mr. Blackwood, with respect, if your company is involved in a theft complaint, your floor is not a sanctuary." Marcus let out a quiet breath through his nose. "You came here with one story already written." Halden did not deny it. Maya looked at the detective, then at the officers. "Who told you to come up here this fast?" No answer. "Preston," she said. The detective's face did not change, which was answer enough. Marcus saw it too. "He filed the amended complaint before the paper trail was complete, didn't he?" Halden's silence was not official. It was personal. The kind of silence that came from a man who had been paid too many times to make questions inconvenient. Linda noticed it, and spoke before Maya could. "If you arrest her on this, it won't stand." Halden adjusted the folder under his arm. "We're not arresting anyone today." Maya stared at him. "Then why are you here?" "To make sure you understand how serious this is." Marcus laughed once, without humor. "That's not police work. That's theater." One of the officers frowned. "Watch your tone." Marcus didn't look at him. "Watch your paperwork." That was when Donovan finally made his decision. "Halden," he said, "you're going to leave this floor and wait downstairs. My counsel will contact your office. Any further contact with Miss Williams goes through legal." Halden looked at him as if weighing whether to push harder. Then he gave a slight nod that meant nothing good. "Your family has a reputation, Mr. Blackwood. Don't let this become a public embarrassment." Maya snapped her eyes to him. "You mean for you?" Halden ignored her and turned to go. The officers followed. When the door shut, the room seemed to breathe again. Maya let out a shaky exhale she had not realized she was holding. Marcus noticed and softened his voice. "They wanted you rattled." "I am rattled." "I know." Donovan crossed the room and picked up the amended complaint from the table. "This is worse than I thought." Linda gave him a hard look. "It's only worse because it was never about the facts." Donovan read the page again. "They've made her sound like a corporate blackmailer." Maya gave a bitter little smile. "That's because it's easier than calling me a witness." Marcus looked at her. "We need the records room." Maya frowned. "Why?" "Because if Preston planted this, then the access trail started somewhere you didn't go." Linda nodded. "And if we can show he used internal credentials, the complaint collapses." Donovan looked up sharply. "Do it." Marcus was already moving. "I know a place." Maya reached for the folder. "I'm coming." Donovan started to object, but Maya cut him off. "I'm not hiding in your office while your son puts my name in front of a judge." That stopped him. Marcus looked at her and gave a single nod. Then, "Stay close." They left the conference room together, moving fast through the hallway before anyone else could decide to become brave or greedy, or both. At the elevator, Marcus pressed the button and leaned in just enough to speak low. "If Preston used the internal system to fake the records route, we'll find it." Maya stared at her reflection in the brushed steel doors. "And if we don't?" Marcus answered, without looking away from the numbers above the elevator. "Then, he's already planned the next lie." The doors opened. As they stepped inside, Maya looked once at the phone in Marcus's hand, then at the folder under Linda's arm, then at the building around her, all clean lines and polished power, and people who believed paperwork could replace morality. For the first time since the lunch tray hit the floor, she was not thinking about what Preston had taken from her. She was thinking about what she could prove, and that, more than fear, was what Preston had to be worried about. The records room was smaller than Maya expected, and quieter too. The kind of room where old decisions went to sleep inside metal cabinets and hoped nobody came looking. Marcus entered first, scanning the corners out of habit. Linda followed with a legal pad already open. Maya came in last, still carrying the folder of amended complaint papers like she might need to throw them at somebody. A staff archivist in her 60s looked up from behind a counter and narrowed her eyes at Marcus. "You again," she said. Marcus gave a polite nod. "Yes, ma'am." "That means trouble." "Yes, ma'am." She looked at Maya, then at Linda. "You all look like trouble together." Linda almost smiled. "We're here for access logs." The archivist sighed, as if she had heard that phrase too many times from men in better suits. "What kind of access logs?" "Blackwood Medical Center," Marcus said. "Restricted corridor and records wing. 3 weeks ago." The woman tapped a keyboard, then studied the screen. "That request is sealed." Linda leaned forward. "Not fully. We need the transaction history before it was flagged." The archivist's mouth tightened. "Honey, if it was flagged, somebody important wanted it quiet." Maya said, "That somebody important is the reason I'm standing here." That got the woman's attention. She looked at Maya for a second longer than the others, then tilted her head toward a back room. "Follow me." Inside, the air smelled like toner and old paper. A row of monitors glowed softly over stacks of archived folders. The archivist sat down, typed a few commands, and pulled up a list of entries. Marcus came around to stand behind her chair. Linda rested one hand on the counter. Maya stayed back, watching every move. "Name?" the archivist asked. "Maya Williams." The woman typed it in. A second later, the screen filled with entries. Maya's visitor badge number, her delivery window, the lunch order route, the time she entered the medical center, the time she exited. Then another line appeared. Maya frowned. "What's that?" The archivist pointed. "That's a secondary access trail." Linda leaned in. "That wasn't in the initial report." "No," the woman said. "Because someone cleaned it." Marcus's jaw tightened. "Who had access?" The archivist clicked again, bringing up a chain of credentials. "Several people. Most of them were basic admin. One was from legal, one was from security, and one was a temporary executive override." Maya looked up sharply. "Whose override?" The archivist scrolled. The name appeared. P. Blackwood. Preston. Maya stared at the screen. "He used his own code. To move my badge through a restricted corridor," Linda was already writing. "Or used a system override after the fact to make it look like you entered there." Marcus pointed to the timestamp. "What time is that?" The archivist read it aloud. 2:13 p.m. Maya shook her head. "I was on the loading dock at 2:13. I signed a second receipt there." Linda looked up. "Can you prove it?" Maya reached into her purse and took out the carbon copy receipt she had kept. It was bent and coffee-stained from the day everything went wrong, but the loading dock stamp was still visible. Marcus took it from her, compared it to the screen, and nodded. She was nowhere near the records corridor. The archivist gave a dry snort. "That's nice. Someone should tell your police detective." Linda looked at the screen again. "What about the administrative log? Can you show the edit trail?" The archivist hesitated. "That part took some digging." Marcus met her eyes. "Please." That single word changed something. She clicked again, and a second window opened. The log showed an edit made 5 minutes after Maya left the building. The user ID belonged to an internal legal account. Linda read it aloud. "Record amended. Visitor path reassigned. Corridor access retrofitted to match incident narrative." Maya felt her stomach turn. "They rewrote where I was." Marcus's voice was low. "Not just where you were. What you were supposed to mean." The archivist closed the window halfway. "Whoever did this knew enough to build a story around a woman nobody thought would fight back." Maya looked at her. "You think that's why they chose me?" The woman didn't sugarcoat it. "I think they chose you because they thought nobody would care if you got buried under paper." Silence hung over the room. Linda set down her pen. "We need copies." The archivist printed the records with brisk, practiced hands. "I'm giving you these because I've watched rich men bury things for 20 years, and I'm tired of pretending that makes them right." Marcus took the stack when it came off the printer. "Thank you." She looked at him. "Don't thank me. Use it." Maya watched the pages slide into Marcus's hands, and for a second she felt something she hadn't felt since the lunch tray hit the floor. Not relief. Not yet. Direction. Linda flipped through the first few pages. This is enough to show the complaint was built on a false access story. Enough to slow it down? Maya asked. Enough to expose the lie, Linda said. If we move fast. Marcus's phone buzzed. He checked the screen and exhaled once through his nose. Too late. Maya looked at him. What? He turned the phone so they could all see. New message. Blackwood Legal. Emergency filing. Press release pending. Detective Halden copied on the thread. Linda swore. He's going public. Marcus read the message again. Not public. Controlled public. Maya frowned. Explain. He's not waiting for a hearing, Marcus said. He's trying to frame the story before we can answer it. If the complaint drops first and the media picks it up, he gets to call you an accused extortionist before anyone sees the logs. Linda took the phone, scanned the text, and nodded sharply. He's also feeding it to the press. Maya's expression hardened. Of course he is. The archivist came back with one last folder and placed it on the counter. You should probably have this too. Linda opened it. Inside were old notes from the Briar Glen file, a copy of a property violation memo, and a handwritten meeting summary with one line circled in red. Report revised, after council review. Marcus pulled the memo out and read it twice. This is it. Maya stepped closer. What does it say? Linda answered before Marcus could. It says the fire code violations were known before the blaze and cleaned up after the fact. Maya stared at the page. So, they didn't just erase me. They were already covering their tracks. Marcus nodded. That's why Preston's protecting the complaint so hard. If Briar Glen opens, so does everything connected to it. The archivist pointed toward the printer tray. Take the copies and go. If Blackwood Legal starts sniffing around here, I'll deny I ever saw you. Linda gathered the records fast. Marcus tucked the Briar Glen notes into the folder. Maya took the access log copy and held it so tightly the edges bent under her fingers. As they headed back through the archive room, the front desk phone rang. The archivist answered, listened for 2 seconds, then looked up at Marcus with a face gone flat. They're asking for you at the entrance, she said. Marcus stopped. Who is? She covered the receiver and said, Detective Halden. And he sounds annoyed. Maya felt every muscle in her body tighten. He's here. 2 officers, the woman said. Maybe 3 if the one in the lobby counts. Linda's voice sharpened. They found us too fast. Marcus took the folder from Maya and gave her a look that was all business now. Stay close. Maya looked at the door, then at the papers in Linda's arms, then at the screen still glowing with the ugly little trail Preston had left behind. For the first time today, she said, I'm not scared they're coming. Marcus opened the side door for her. What are you scared of then? Maya stepped through without slowing. That he'll keep lying long enough for somebody to believe him. Marcus followed her out into the hall, the copied records in one hand, and answered with a voice that had gone cold and certain. Then we stopped giving him time. At the entrance, Detective Halden was already talking to the front desk guard with the kind of patience that only made him sound more certain of himself. When he saw Marcus and Maya coming through the side corridor with Linda and the copied records, he straightened and lifted his chin as if the building itself had just confirmed his authority. There she is, he said. Maya stopped but did not step back. You say that like you've been waiting. Halden held up a paper. I have a complaint to serve. Marcus moved in front of her without touching her. You're welcome to serve it through legal. Halden's eyes flicked to the folder in Marcus's hand. And you're welcome to stop pretending this is a misunderstanding. Linda came up beside Maya, calm, but sharp. Then you should know the misunderstanding began when someone altered the access trail and filed a false complaint. Halden gave her a tired look. Counselor, I'm not here to debate your theory. It's not a theory, Linda said. It's the log. One of the officers behind Halden shifted his weight. Maya noticed the way his gaze dropped to the papers. He was young enough to still look uncomfortable, which made him more dangerous, not less. Men who were uncomfortable sometimes got eager to prove they could still follow orders. Halden took a step closer. Miss Williams, you're being asked to accompany us downtown. For what? Maya asked. Questioning. I've already been questioned by your people, by Blackwood Legal, and by a receptionist who couldn't look me in the eye while she lied on my name. Halden's expression tightened. You need to lower your voice. Maya laughed once, but there was no humor in it. That's interesting. I didn't hear you asking the same of Preston Blackwood when he turned a lunch tray into a criminal case. Marcus looked at Halden. You were at the precinct when the amended complaint was filed. Halden didn't answer. That silence is helpful, Marcus said. One of the officers cleared his throat. Detective, should we just take her in? Linda stepped forward immediately. No one is taking her anywhere until you review the documents. Halden glanced at the records in her hands. Those weren't provided through chain of custody. They were printed from the source system, Linda replied. Your complaint was filed on a story that doesn't match the source system. Halden's jaw worked once. Maya could see him deciding how much room he had left before the whole thing slid out from under him. He had come prepared to pressure her, not to be surrounded by evidence. He looked at Maya again. You can make this easier for yourself. Maya held his gaze. You can make it honest. That landed harder than she expected. Halden blinked, just once. Marcus noticed and pushed the opening. Who called you? Halden's face went flat again. I'm not discussing internal communications. Meaning Preston, Marcus said. Halden said nothing. Maya looked from one man to the other. He filed the complaint before the access log was even edited, didn't he? Halden's silence stretched. Linda spoke before it could harden into denial. He doesn't need the truth on paper first. He only needs the accusation out loud first. The officer nearest the wall looked at Halden. Detective? Halden turned on him with a quick glance. Stay in your lane. That was when Marcus lifted the folder just enough for Halden to see the top sheet. You should know what your lane is, Marcus said. Because this folder proves the route was rewritten after Maya left the building. It proves the corridor access was reassigned with an executive override. And it proves the timestamp doesn't match her delivery receipt. Halden stared at the paper, then at Maya. That doesn't clear her. No, Linda said. It clears the lie. The front desk guard had stopped pretending not to listen. A few employees near the lobby had also slowed. Their heads tilted the way people do when they know a story has turned, and they want to catch the second half. Maya hated that part of it most. Not the accusation. The audience. Halden lowered his voice. Miss Williams, if you cooperate, you can explain all this downtown. Maya looked at him steadily. And if I don't? He hesitated too long. Marcus answered for him. He'll try to make the hesitation look like guilt. Halden's eyes narrowed. You keep interrupting police procedure, Mr. Reed, and I'll make this a security issue. Marcus gave a thin smile. Then be clear whether you're here as police or as Blackwood's cleanup crew. That hit the room like a slap. The younger officer looked at Halden again. Sir? Halden's mouth tightened. We have a complaint. Linda raised the access log copy. And we have the system history that says the complaint was built after a records edit. Halden finally reached for the page, but Linda did not hand it over. She held it steady, forcing him to look at it first. Read the timestamp, she said. He scanned the line, and his face changed by a fraction. Maya saw it. Marcus saw it. The edit was older than the complaint, but not by much. Long enough to be coordinated, short enough to be obvious to anyone who bothered to look. Halden handed the paper back as if it had burned him. You should have brought this sooner, he said. Maya stared at him. To whom? You? No answer. She took a breath, then said, I'm done being handled by people who confuse power with facts. Halden looked past her, toward the copies, and the folder, and the archivist's stamp still visible on one page. You're really going to fight this in a room full of Blackwood money? Maya's voice stayed quiet. No. I'm going to fight it with paper. Marcus shifted slightly closer to her. Good answer. Linda tucked the access logs back into her folder. Detective, if you want to preserve this case, you should step aside before somebody decides you are part of the filing. That made Halden go still. It was not a threat. It was worse. It was an observation. The older officer on his right moved his feet once, uncomfortable now in a way he could not hide. Detective, maybe we should let legal take it from here. Halden turned on him. You don't tell me how to run an investigation. No, sir, the officer said. But I do know a bad complaint when I'm standing in front of one. For the first time, Halden looked genuinely annoyed, not at Maya, but at the fact that the room had stopped agreeing with him. He exhaled through his nose. Fine. We'll hold off on transport. Maya didn't move. Hold off? Halden looked at her. For now. Marcus gave a short, humorless laugh. How generous. Halden ignored him and looked at Maya one last time. Don't leave the city. Maya raised an eyebrow. You think I'm the one running? He didn't answer. When the officers turned to go, the lobby seemed to loosen around them. Not safe. Never safe. But less trapped. That was enough for the moment. Linda exhaled, then turned to Marcus. They're nervous. Good, Marcus said. Maya stared at the folder in his hand. What happens now? Marcus looked at her, and his expression had shifted into something steadier than anger. Now we stop treating Preston like he's just a bad son with a temper. Linda nodded. The access log is one piece. The complaint is another. If we link this to Briar Glen, we can force a full review. Maya looked from one to the other. And if Preston pushes again? Marcus answered immediately. Then we make him do it in daylight. That answer followed her all the way back into the elevator. As the doors closed, Maya watched the lobby fall away. The officers leaving, the guard resuming his post. The office tower pretending it had not just almost swallowed her whole. She held the access log copy tighter. Preston had tried to make her disappear inside a story built by other people. Now she had proof that the story was wrong. And for the first time since the lunch tray hit the floor, that was enough to make fear step aside. The elevator doors opened on the 12th floor, and the first thing Maya saw was Donovan Blackwood standing by the conference room window with his hands behind his back like a man trying to hold a decision inside his own body. Marcus was already there. Linda stood near the table with the access logs open in front of her. Nobody spoke until Maya stepped fully into the room. Donovan turned toward her. The officers left. Maya didn't sit. For now. He gave a short nod. For now. That was the closest thing to an apology she had heard from him all day. And even that sounded like a man still measuring the cost of being decent in public. Marcus set the folder on the table and opened it. We got the records room logs. We got the amended complaint trail. And we got enough to show Preston moved before the facts did. Donovan's gaze dropped to the papers. Will that stop the precinct? No, Linda said. But it gives us leverage. Maya crossed her arms. Leverage against people who already decided I'm guilty? Linda looked at her steadily. Against people who still need a file to survive. Marcus reached into the folder and slid out the Briar Glen notes he had taken from the archive. The old paper looked out of place against the polished table. Maya noticed it immediately. What is that? Marcus answered. The part Preston didn't expect us to find. He handed her the first page. Maya read the header, then the handwritten note underneath. Her eyes narrowed. Fire code violations, she said. Linda nodded. Known before the blaze. Maya kept reading. A memo. An internal review. A property inspection. A meeting summary with names blacked out and one line highlighted in red. Report revised after council review. Her mouth tightened. They knew. Donovan came closer to the table. His expression harder now. Read the next page. Maya did. Then another. Then she stopped. The room felt smaller. This says the inspector flagged the rear stairwell as locked from the inside, Maya said. Marcus nodded once. And it was changed, after legal review. Maya looked up slowly. So Briar Glen wasn't just a tragedy. No, Linda said. It was a liability that got cleaned up. Donovan rubbed a hand across his jaw. This file should not exist. Marcus looked at him. Yet it does. Maya set the pages down carefully. You want to know why I didn't come forward again after the fire? Because I watched this happen once already. I watched people with more money than sense rewrite the truth until it sounded respectable. Donovan didn't interrupt. I went to a city clerk, Maya said. Then an insurance office. Then a reporter who promised a call back and never returned it. Every time I tried to push, somebody reminded me I didn't have the right last name, the right lawyer, or the right kind of voice. Linda's face changed a little, not with pity, but recognition. Maya continued, quieter now. Eventually I got tired of being told my memory was the problem. Marcus leaned against the edge of the table. You remember what happened that night? Maya looked at the Briar Glen memo in front of her. I remember smoke. I remember people screaming. I remember hearing a man cough so hard he couldn't stand up. I remember pulling him toward the exit, because nobody else was moving. Donovan's eyes shifted. That man was Marcus. Marcus didn't correct him. He just looked at Maya with a respect that wasn't soft, only real. Linda picked up the property report again. There's more. She turned the page around. A list of internal meeting attendees. One name repeated in the margin. Blackwood Legal. Another note beneath it. Family statement to be coordinated. No public liability admission. Maya stared at the line. So the family knew too. Donovan's voice was low. I knew there was an incident. I did not know the file had been changed. Maya looked at him. That sounds like a rich man saying he only knew part of the lie. Donovan took that without flinching. It probably does. Marcus glanced at the conference room door when the hallway phone rang outside. Nobody moved. A secretary answered somewhere beyond the wall, and then the line went quiet again. The silence after it felt active, like a warning. Linda checked her phone. Her expression sharpened. Blackwood Legal just filed a press hold. Maya looked at her. Meaning? Meaning they're trying to control what gets released and when, Linda said. And they're already feeding a version to a local outlet. Marcus straightened. Which outlet? Linda read the screen once more. Channel 6 Investigative. They're running with female suspect in corporate theft inquiry. Maya exhaled through her nose. Suspect again. Donovan frowned. They're moving fast. They're panicking, Marcus said. Linda looked between the two men. That usually means the next step is either a broader leak or a cleanup attempt inside the company. Maya went still. Preston, Marcus nodded. He'll want to shut down anything that touches Briar Glen before it gets to a reporter. Donovan turned toward the window, then back. Then we give him something he can't seal. Marcus tapped the Briar Glen file. We already have it. Linda was one step ahead. Not enough. We need a source who can say the file was altered and why. Maya looked at the paper in front of her and then back up. The archive woman. Marcus caught on immediately. She saw enough to know somebody cleaned the room. Linda added. And if she remembers the chain of custody, she can confirm the file was moved after the fire. Donovan made a decision. Get her here. Maya frowned. You know her? No, Donovan said. But I know what happens when a file exists, and nobody wants it seen. People like your archivist remember more than they say. Marcus gave a short nod. I'll go. Maya picked up the Briar Glen memo before he could take it. I'm coming. Donovan looked at her. You don't have to. Maya's eyes stayed on him. I think we're past that. That earned the smallest, briefest change in Donovan's face. Not warmth. Not yet. Something closer to acceptance. Linda gathered the rest of the documents. If this woman confirms the rewrite, we can use the records trail to show the complaint against Maya is part of the same cleanup. Maya heard the word cleanup and almost laughed. That's a polite word for a lot of ugly work. Marcus opened the conference room door and checked the hall. We move now. They took the service elevator down and exited through the side entrance. Not because they were hiding, but because nobody in this building ever liked seeing the truth leave by the front door. Marcus led the way to the sedan. Linda got in front. Maya sat in back with the Briar Glen file on her lap. As they pulled away, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Then another. Marcus glanced at her through the rearview mirror. Don't answer. I know. The screen lit up again. A text, this time. From a number she didn't recognize. You were there. We have witnesses. Maya stared at it. Another message followed. Cooperate. And this goes away. Her thumb tightened around the phone. Marcus saw her face harden. Who is it? She handed him the screen. He read the text once, and his jaw set. Preston. Linda turned around in her seat. That's not a legal communication. Maya looked out the window as the city moved past. No. That's a threat, wearing a tie. Marcus handed the phone back. Good. Then we treat it like one. He took the next turn hard, heading toward the archive annex and the last person who could connect Briar Glen to the lie Preston was building now. And for the first time since the lunch tray fell, Maya wasn't wondering whether the truth would survive. She was wondering how long Preston had before it reached him. The archive annex was quieter than the office tower, but it carried a different kind of pressure. Not money, not polish, memory. Maya, Marcus, and Linda walked in together, carrying the Briar Glen file and the access logs like they were evidence and leverage at the same time. The archivist at the front desk looked up and immediately recognized Marcus. "You again," she said. Marcus gave her a small nod. "Yes, ma'am." Her eyes shifted to Maya. "You look like you've had a day," Maya answered without slowing. "I've had a week, in one day." That earned the archivist a faint, approving look. Back room, same as before. They followed her past rows of gray boxes and metal shelves until they reached a side room with a scanner, a printer, and a wall clock that seemed to move slower than the rest of the city. Linda set the Briar Glen file on the table. Marcus placed the access logs beside it. Maya stayed standing, one hand on the back of a chair, watching the archivist power up the scanner. The woman glanced at the papers. "What exactly am I looking at?" Linda answered first. "An altered access trail, an amended complaint, and a fire report with a rewritten history." The archivist snorted. "That sounds like half the city." Marcus pointed to the Briar Glen notes. "This one matters more than the rest." The archivist slid on her reading glasses, opened the folder, and began to scan the first page. Her expression changed slowly as she read. "Fire code violations," she said. "Known before the blaze." Maya folded her arms tighter. "That's what they buried." The archivist looked up. "They always bury the part that proves somebody had warnings." Linda leaned over the page. "Can you show us the meeting summary again?" The archivist did, then clicked to the next file. "Here, property owner meeting. Council present. Report revised after review." Marcus's jaw tightened. Who was counsel? The archivist checked the margin. Blackwood, legal. Maya exhaled once, sharp and controlled. So they weren't cleaning up a story. They were cleaning up a liability. "That's one way to say it," the archivist replied. "The other is they were deciding who was allowed to be a victim." Nobody spoke for a beat. Then Linda pointed to a handwritten note in the corner of the page. "What's this line?" The archivist bent closer. "It says the witness file was revised after contact with corporate security." Marcus looked up immediately. "Contact with who?" The archivist shrugged. "That's not written here. Just the note. But the handwriting matches the same person on the access overwrite." Maya stepped closer and stared at the scan. Preston used his own code in the medical center. Could he have done the same here? Could have, the archivist said. "Or someone with his authorization." Marcus frowned. "That means his father or legal staff." Linda was already scanning the next page. "Wait, there's more." She turned the document so the others could see a typed addendum. It wasn't long. One paragraph. One of those deadly little paragraphs that could erase a life without raising a voice. Maya read it once, then again. "No public identification of civilian rescuer pending family review," she said. Marcus looked at her. "That's you." Maya kept reading. "And then it says the rescue witness would be kept anonymous to protect the family statement." Linda's face hardened. "They didn't want your name in the file because they wanted the family version to stand alone." Maya stared at the page. "So, every time I tried to come forward, I was going against a machine that had already decided I was inconvenient." The archivist nodded once, slow and grim. "That's the ugly part of these things. They don't always need to lie directly. They just make sure the true version never becomes official." Marcus took a second scan printout and studied the margin. "There's a signature." Linda stepped in. "Not a full one. Initials." Marcus pointed. "P. B." Maya looked up sharply. The room seemed to narrow around the initials. Linda said it first. "Preston." Maya's voice came out flat. "He was involved before the complaint." Marcus nodded. "Or the family was, and he inherited the habit." The archivist leaned back in her chair. "You've got enough here to make somebody nervous." Linda closed the folder halfway. "Not nervous. Reactive." Marcus checked his phone. "And, speaking of reactive," he stopped. Maya looked at him. "What?" He turned the screen so they could all see. A message had come in from a blocked number, but the preview was enough. Stop digging into Briar Glen. Maya stared at it, then at the name attached to the number once Marcus opened the thread history. It was not Preston this time. It was an assistant from Blackwood Legal. Linda's eyes narrowed. They're watching the records room. The archivist shut the scanner lid. Then you need to leave. Marcus was already collecting the pages. We're not done. You can be not done somewhere else, the archivist said. People like this don't send warnings unless they're one step away from a cleanup. Maya turned to Marcus. Cleanup. He nodded once. That's what they call it when they want the truth to disappear before it gets spoken. Linda grabbed the copies and slid them into a legal envelope. We need a witness. Someone who can tie the revisions to the original fire report. The archivist raised a hand. I might know someone. That got everyone's attention. She leaned forward, lowered her voice, and said, there was a retired investigator who kept asking why the Briar Glen report changed after the family meeting. He used to live 2 streets over from me. Old school. Doesn't like lawyers. Hates rich men. Still keeps notes in a filing cabinet he doesn't trust the government to find. Marcus was already on it. Name, Earl Benton. Linda wrote it down immediately. Is he still alive? The archivist gave a dry smile. For now, which is more than you can say for most documents in this town. Maya looked at the Briar Glen file in Marcus's hand. Then, let's go talk to him before somebody else does. The archivist stood and pointed at the back exit. If you're smart, you'll take the alley. Front door has a camera. Marcus gave her a firm nod. Thank you, ma'am. She waved him off. Don't thank me. Just make them regret coming here. They were halfway to the back exit when Marcus's phone rang. He looked at the caller ID and slowed. Donovan, he said. Maya took the phone from him before he could answer. Put it on speaker. Marcus did. Donovan Blackwood's voice came through tense and controlled. Marcus, tell me you're with Maya. I am, Marcus said. A pause. Good. I need you both at the foundation office. Now. Linda's head lifted. Why? Donovan did not answer immediately. When he did, his voice had lost some of the polish she had heard in the conference room. Because Preston just sent legal to the precinct with a new version of the complaint, and he's trying to freeze my access to the records before you can use them. Maya's face went cold. He knows. Donovan exhaled. Yes. And I just found out he has been communicating with Detective Halden directly. Marcus looked at Maya. She was already steady, already focused. The fear replaced by something harder. What did he say? She asked. Donovan's answer was clipped. He says if the Briar Glen file surfaces, we all go down with it. Marcus closed his hand around the Briar Glen folder. Maya stared at the phone. Then, at the archived scans in Linda's envelope. Tell him he's too late, she said. Donovan's breathing was audible for one beat on the line. Then he said, come here before he makes the next move. Marcus ended the call and looked at Maya. We're not finished. Maya picked up the Briar Glen notes. No. Now we know he's scared. Linda opened the back door. Which means we move faster. Maya stepped through first, the file held tight against her chest. And for the first time since this whole mess started, she wasn't just trying to survive Preston Blackwood's lies. She was carrying proof that could end them. The foundation office on the top floor had the same polished quiet as the rest of Blackwood's world, but now it felt strained, like the room itself had heard too many lies in one day. Donovan was standing near his desk when Maya, Marcus, and Linda arrived. Preston was already there, too, with one legal advisor and a phone pressed to his ear. He ended the call the second he saw them. Perfect, he said. We can stop pretending this is confidential. Donovan did not look at him. His eyes went straight to the envelope in Linda's hand, and then to the Briar Glen file in Marcus's. Put it on the table, he said. Marcus did. Linda followed with the access logs and the archive copies. Maya stayed near the door, one hand still around the edge of the folder she had carried out of the archive annex. She had the feeling she was standing at the center of something that had been buried for years and was finally starting to rot in the light. Preston noticed her first. You again, Maya answered without moving. You keep saying that, like I keep showing up on purpose. Preston gave a thin smile. At this point, I'm starting to think you do. Donovan held up a hand. Enough. Preston turned to him. Dad, this is a mess because people decided to dig where they didn't belong. Marcus looked at him. You mean where you didn't want them to look? Preston ignored him and walked to the desk. Let's be clear. There is an active complaint, a police inquiry, and a risk to the Foundation's reputation. The only reason this has gone as far as it has is because everyone in this room is overreacting to one woman's story. Maya's voice went flat. One woman's story? Preston looked at her. Yes, your story. Linda stepped forward. Then you should read the access trail before you reduce it. She slid the copy across the desk. Preston glanced at it, not with interest, but with the lazy confidence of a man who assumed every page in the world could be talked around. Then his eyes stopped on the highlighted line. His expression changed just enough for Marcus to notice. Donovan noticed too. What is that? Donovan asked. Preston set the page down carefully. A manipulated log, Linda replied. It's your internal override code. Preston looked at her. You don't know that? I know the credentials were used to rewrite Maya's path through the building after she left, Linda said. I know the records show she never entered the restricted corridor. And I know your legal team was already drafting the complaint before the edit was finalized. Preston's jaw tightened. That's not proof. Marcus opened the Briar Glen file and placed the report summary on top of the access log. Then read this. Donovan reached for the page before Preston could stop him. His eyes moved down the memo, then across the handwritten notes, then to the line about the report being revised after council review. He read it once, then again. This is real, he said quietly. Preston's tone sharpened. Dad, that file has been sitting in storage for years. You don't know who touched it or what they changed. Donovan looked up. You think I'm that easy to fool? Preston held his gaze. I think you're being pushed into a scandal by a woman who knows how to make herself useful to the right people. That was the wrong sentence. Maya saw it in the room before the words fully landed. Donovan's face didn't explode. It went still. Marcus stepped closer to the desk. Careful. Preston smirked, but there was strain behind it now. There it is again, the rescue act. Maya finally moved. She walked to the table and set the archive scan in front of Donovan. You want to know why I didn't come forward after Briar Glen? Because every time I did, somebody important managed to make my name disappear. Donovan looked at the scan. The photo of the young woman with the gauze wrap, the birthmark, the date stamp. Maya kept going. I went to a city office. I went to insurance. I went to a reporter. I was told the matter was under review, then under legal, then under confidentiality. Nobody ever said I was lying. They just made sure I never got to be official. Donovan listened without interrupting. Marcus added, The records room confirms it. The report was edited. The route was rewritten. The legal file was cleaned up after council review. Linda pointed to the margin initials on the Briar Glen memo. And this is the part you need to look at. Donovan picked up the page. His eyes narrowed. P. B. Preston's expression hardened instantly. That could mean anything. Maya laughed once. That's funny. Earlier today you said people like me know how to turn a misunderstanding into a payday. Now your initials are on a fire report, and suddenly initials mean nothing. Preston's mouth tightened. Donovan set the page down and looked at his son for a long moment. Did you know about this? Preston answered too quickly. No, Marcus said. That was fast. Preston turned on him. You're not part of this family. No, Marcus said. But I was part of Briar Glen. The room went quiet. Marcus looked at Donovan. She pulled me out that night. I remember her voice. I remember the mark on her wrist. I remember because nobody else bothered to remember her at all. Donovan's face changed. Not to guilt, to something older and uglier. Recognition. Why didn't I know? He asked. Maya met his eyes. Because knowing would have meant somebody in your world had to answer for what happened. Preston snapped. This is ridiculous. Linda turned to Donovan. It's not ridiculous. It's coordinated. He's using the police complaint to create a paper wall in case the Briar Glen file gets exposed. Preston's stare flicked to her. You're making accusations without understanding the consequences. Linda did not back up. No, I'm reading them. Donovan rubbed a hand over his mouth and looked from the logs to the fire memo to Maya's face. If this gets out, it opens the company to everything. Maya answered. Maybe it should. That landed hard. Preston took a step toward her. You're enjoying this. Maya didn't flinch. I'm standing in the room where my life got rewritten. Don't confuse that with enjoyment. Preston's voice dropped. You think this changes anything? You think one old file and a couple of papers make you untouchable? Marcus moved between them before the temperature in the room could become something worse. Donovan raised his voice for the first time. Preston, sit down. Preston didn't. Sit down. The command cracked the room. Preston hesitated, then pulled out the chair and sat with the stiffness of a man forced into a pose he hated. Donovan turned to Marcus. How far does this go? Marcus answered honestly. Far enough that if we keep hiding it, we become part of it. Donovan looked at Maya. You said you want the truth. I do. And not a settlement. No. And not silence. Maya's eyes stayed on him. No. Donovan nodded once, slowly, as if each word cost something. Then he reached for the phone on his desk. Preston straightened. Dad. Donovan ignored him and dialed. Marcus watched him. Linda stopped writing. After 2 rings, Donovan spoke into the phone. Get me the foundation board chair. And counsel. Not connected to Preston's office. Preston stood up so fast his chair nearly tipped. What are you doing? Donovan looked at him now, and there was no softness left in it. I'm finding out what else my son buried. Preston went pale. Maya did not move. She could feel the room shifting around that one sentence. Donovan ended the call and looked at Marcus. Bring me everything from Briar Glen. All of it. Marcus nodded. Yes, sir. Donovan turned to Linda. And the access logs. Originals, copies, chain of custody, every note. Linda replied. Already on the table. Then his eyes moved to Maya. For tonight, he said, you will not speak to the police alone. Maya stared at him. That's your line now. It is. She studied him for a beat, then gave a small nod. Better late than never. Preston's voice came out thin and sharp. You can't be serious. Donovan looked at his son as if he were seeing him correctly for the first time. I am more serious than I have ever been. The silence after that was enormous. Maya picked up the Briar Glen scan and held it against her chest. She had spent 17 years trying to make someone care enough to open the file. Now the man whose name had once protected the lie was opening the door himself. And Preston, for the first time, looked like a man who understood the ground under him had finally started to move. The questions kept coming for another minute. Then 2. Then long enough for the reporters to realize the story was not going to be handed to them in a tidy sentence. Donovan stayed at the podium and answered what he could without running from what he could not. Blackwood Legal had already started to move behind the scenes, but the room had changed in a way Preston could not control anymore. Every camera was pointed at the evidence. Every phone in the hall was recording the silence where his denials should have been. Preston finally tried to speak over the noise. This is a smear campaign. Maya turned toward him before anyone else could answer. No, she said. A smear campaign is what you did to me. That pulled the room quiet again. She did not raise her voice. She did not need to. You called me a thief because it was easier than admitting I had proof. You used your company, your lawyers, and the police to force a lie into a file. And when that didn't work, you tried to bury Briar Glen again. A reporter asked. Miss Williams, are you saying the Blackwood family altered fire records? Maya looked at the camera, then at Donovan, then back at the crowd. I'm saying the records were changed to protect people who should have answered for what happened. I'm saying my name was removed because the truth was inconvenient. And I'm saying Preston Blackwood knew exactly what he was doing when he tried to make me disappear in paperwork. Preston's mouth tightened. You have no idea what you're talking about. Marcus took one step forward. You already lost that argument. Linda handed Donovan a final sheet from the Briar Glen file. This is the meeting summary showing counsel review. The edits line up, with the same legal office attached to the complaint against Miss Williams. The board chair, standing off to the side with 2 other members, looked from the file to Donovan. If this is accurate, the foundation has a serious disclosure problem. Donovan nodded once. It does, and we're not hiding it. That sentence landed hard. It was not polished. It was not PR. It was the kind of sentence people in that room had spent their adult lives waiting to hear from powerful men who usually said less and meant even less. The first police officers arrived while the reporters were still asking questions. Halden came in behind them, face set, suit jacket open, trying to look like the room had not slipped away from him. He saw the cameras. He saw Maya at the podium. He saw the evidence in Marcus's hands. His expression changed only by a fraction, but it was enough. Donovan stepped toward him. "Detective." Halden gave a cautious nod. "Mr. Blackwood, you filed an amended complaint against Maya Williams based on false access records." Halden's eyes moved to the reporters. "We are here to maintain order." "No," Maya said, looking straight at him. "You were here to help Preston make me look guilty before anybody checked the logs." Halden did not answer. Marcus held up the access trail. "You were copied on the press hold before the complaint was even cleaned up." One of the younger officers looked uncomfortable now. He glanced at Halden, then at the cameras, then at the Briar Glen files on the podium, like he was suddenly very aware of how bad this might look later. Halden drew a breath. "I'm going to need those records," Linda replied. "You can request them through counsel like an adult." A few reporters actually laughed at that. Halden ignored them and looked at Donovan. "Mr. Blackwood, if your son was involved in unauthorized filing, you need to let us take this into custody." Preston snapped. "Dad, don't." Donovan turned slowly toward his son. "You do not tell me what to do anymore." For once, Preston had no comeback ready. His face tightened and stayed that way. The board chair moved closer to Donovan. "We should convene an emergency disclosure committee. Tonight." Donovan nodded. "Agreed." "Also," she said, lowering her voice but not enough to hide it from the microphones, "you should expect subpoenas." Donovan answered without hesitation. "Then, we'll answer them." That was the moment the room fully understood the shift. He was not just protecting the foundation anymore. He was choosing a side. Maya stepped back from the microphone. Her hands were steady, but her chest felt tight in that strange, delayed way that comes when fear has nowhere left to go. Marcus noticed and came to stand beside her. "You did good," he said quietly. Maya looked at him. "I didn't do this alone." "No," he said, "but you carried it here." She looked toward the reporters still shouting questions, toward Donovan speaking to the board chair, toward Preston standing rigid and pale under lights that no longer made him look powerful. "What happens now?" Marcus answered honestly. "Now the lawyers fight, the board fights, the police fight, and Preston learns what it feels like when the room stops protecting him." Linda came up with the Briar Glen packet under her arm, and the fire file gets opened. Donovan turned back from the board chair, his face tired now in a way that looked older than before. He looked at Maya first, not at Preston, not at the cameras. "I owe you an apology," he said. Maya did not interrupt. "I should have looked harder years ago. I should have asked why your name was missing. I should have checked the fire report myself instead of trusting the version that was handed to me." Maya held his gaze. "Yes, you should have." He nodded once. "I know, that was not enough, but it was real." Maya could live with real. The reporters caught every word. One asked if Donovan was admitting corporate knowledge of the fire report revision. Another asked whether Preston would be removed from all foundation activities. Another asked if Maya would be pursuing charges. The hall was loud again, but in a different way now. Not confusion, consequence. Donovan looked out at the cameras. "The foundation will release all documents related to Briar Glen and the complaint filed against Miss Williams. Preston Blackwood will have no operational role, while the board and council review every step of this matter." Preston started forward. "You can't do that." Donovan didn't even turn his head. "Watch me." That stopped him. Halden cleared his throat, clearly realizing his easiest path out had vanished. "We'll need statements from everyone present." Maya looked at him. "You'll need the truth. From everyone present." He met her eyes and, for the first time, didn't have the smugness to cover himself with. "We'll schedule interviews." "No," Linda said. "You'll schedule them through proper counsel." Halden gave a small, frustrated nod. A reporter asked Maya whether she had been afraid to come forward. Maya thought about the years, the silence, the ignored calls, the papers rewritten over her name. Then she looked at the microphone and answered, "Yes, but fear is what people count on when they want the truth to stay small." The room went still. "And the reason I kept going," she said, "is because once somebody lies on your name, every day after that becomes a choice. You either let them keep writing your story, or you take it back." Marcus looked down for half a second, then back up. Linda's eyes had softened, but only a little. Donovan stood very still. Preston stared at Maya like he was seeing the cost of his own choices all at once. A final question came from the back. "Miss Williams, what do you want now?" Maya looked out at the room, at the cameras, at the people who had looked past her until the truth made her impossible to ignore. "I want the records corrected," she said. "I want the complaint withdrawn. I want the people who used the police to threaten me held accountable. And I want Briar Glen put back where it belongs, in the light." The answer did not sound dramatic. It sounded final. Marcus stepped aside and let the cameras see the folder in his hands. The older photo of Maya in the gauze wrap flashed across several screens, followed by the access log, the memo, the revised report. A story that had been buried under confidence and money was now being handed to the public one page at a time. Preston looked around the room and seemed to understand, maybe for the first time in his life, that power without protection of the lie is just naked guilt. Two board members moved toward Donovan. The legal team began talking all at once. Halden was already on the phone. Reporters were calling editors. The room had turned into motion, but Maya stayed where she was, breathing slowly, feeling the truth settle around her like something heavy finally placed on the ground. Marcus came close enough to speak without the microphone's hearing. "It's done." Maya shook her head once. "No, it started." He looked at her, and there was no argument in that, just respect. Behind them, Donovan was telling counsel to prepare a public release and to preserve every internal email tied to Briar Glen and the complaint. Preston stood alone now, the podium lights catching the strain in his face, his silence no longer strategic but empty. Maya looked at him one last time. "You should have stopped when you still had a choice." Preston did not answer. She turned away before he could find a lie worth saying. Outside, the city was already moving on, but inside the hall the record had changed. Her name was no longer missing. The fire file was no longer buried, and the family that had once used its money to erase her was now standing in the open with its own documents in hand. For the first time in 17 years, Maya Williams did not have to beg to be believed. The lesson from this story is simple. The truth may be delayed, hidden, or buried under money and power, but it does not disappear forever. A person's worth is never decided by their job, their clothes, or their place in society. In the end, honesty, courage, and patience can bring justice to light. Thank you for listening all the way to the end of this story. I truly appreciate your time and support. Your thoughts matter, so please share your feedback on the storytelling, the pacing, and the emotions in this tale. And if you have a powerful story of your own that deserves to be heard, please contribute it to the channel. This video is a work of fiction created with the assistance of artificial intelligence. All characters, events, and situations are not real and do not represent any actual people or true stories. The content is intended for storytelling and emotional illustration only.